Shout on, pray on, we're gaining ground. Glory, hallelujah, the dead's alive and the lost is found. Glory, hallelujah.
Hi guys, this is Brandon with Eschatology Matters, part of the Fight, Laugh, Feast Network. And if you're not sure who I am the co-founder and producer of Eschatology Matters. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for all the positive comments and encouragement that you guys gave me in my first video. I don't have a name for what I'm doing here, and I'm not sure if I ever will. I'm just going to come on here and kind of shoot the breeze and ramble, say what's going on, what's on my mind, maybe some insider podcasting world stuff on occasion. And so one of the things that I had planned, I was going to see if you guys were going to even listen, and like I said, I was very encouraged by the response that I got, so I'm going to keep making these as long as you watch them. But one of the things that I was going to work on was a video called Young, Restless and Reformed Wasn't All That Bad, or something along those lines. And this is that's kind of that, but it's kind of evolved. And what I mean by that is the other day in the comments on YouTube, a guy asked me, well, what do you think about Calvin Robinson speaking at Joel Webbon's conference? And my response is, that's up to Joel. I'm not going to answer for Joel. And if you don't know, Calvin and I had a falling out on X. I know that might sound hypocritical because I was this big unity guy, right? But just going to be honest with you guys, he was trashing Protestants left and right on X, and this was after that we had him on, and I kind of got tired of it, and so I called him out for it and said I was done with him, and he didn't take to that very kindly, and we had some words, and then he threatened me with lawyers, and it got pretty ridiculous. But I'm good without Calvin. Calvin can go do his thing, and I'm going to do my thing, and we're good. But someone asked me, well, what would you do would you have Calvin at your conference? Answer for yourself. And that was a more interesting question to me, because my answer was, it depends. It depends on, and let's just say it wasn't Calvin, but someone like him, because I wouldn't have Calvin at one of my conferences now, the way things have played out. But someone like him, would I have him at my conference? Well, depends on what I was trying to do. Depends on what the goal was, depends on what the environment was, depends on what the platform was. All of that would matter. So one thing that I don't know if I'll ever have time to do it, but what I'd like to do is do something where I involve younger men or men within my local context to help train them to be politically active. I think that's important that Christian men take leadership roles in the community through politics, through law enforcement, in finance, all of it. I think we should be leading the way in business, in finances, all of it, okay? And if there was an instance where there was a Mormon guy down the road, a politician, and he very effectively knew how to run political campaigns, and he's already working within the framework of the Republican Party, for instance, or a conservative movement, and he knew how to run a really good local campaign, and I couldn't find a better guy and who was a believer who could accomplish my same goal. I might have a Mormon come and talk to my explicitly Christian group that explicitly wants to take over politics for Christ and his kingdom. I might have a Mormon come and talk in that situation. But in other instances, if I was giving a talk on eschatology, we were doing a conference, I would not have a Mormon, not in a million years, unless it was to refute them or to gain understanding as to what they believe and then refute it or something. So I think that the context of what you're doing matters, and I don't think it's just a blanket statement one way or the other. And the verse that comes to mind in all of this is, be wise as serpents. Christ was chastising believers for basically being foolish, for not taking simple worldly tools and wisdom and using them for kingdom advantage, and even our own advantage. And it's foolish not to. But the second part of that verse is to be innocent as doves, right? So we're to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. And I think having a Mormon teach how to have a successful political campaign is perfectly within that realm, and it wouldn't violate anything. But that's just me. That's my thoughts. Well, anyways, to make a long story even longer, I posted something on X. I just started thinking about these things, and then I don't know if it's related or not, but I started thinking, these older guys that are older than me. So I'm 44. I was born in 1980. I don't really identify with millennials. They're all younger than me. I definitely don't identify with boomers because they're all older than me, and even the Gen Xers. I think of those guys and I think, oh, those were the kids from the 70s. And when I was in middle school, they were in high school or already graduated, and they liked, 80s hair metal and were really into Iron Maiden and stuff. Things that were just, it was all when I was a little kid. So I feel like there's this group of guys that were in our mid 40s and we kind of don't fit anywhere. And we went through school without the internet, but right as we were coming out of school, it was happening. And so we got that last little bit of the pre-technology, or the pre-internet, definitely not pre-technology, the pre-internet age. But then as young adults, it was right there, and we had to adapt. So we had kind of both, one foot in the old world, one foot in the new world, So I think that gives us maybe a unique perspective. And what I wanted to say, or what I tried to say in this tweet, was that I wanted to just maybe give some perspective to the younger guys and to the older guys. And when I say younger and older, I'm talking about in the Reformed movement, as to why I think some of the talking past each other is going on. So I'll speak first about the older group, and hopefully young guys, that you'll pick up some things and be like, okay, I haven't really thought about it that way, or whatever. So hopefully this is helpful. But if we rewind back before the Young, Restless, and Reformed movement, let's go back to when John MacArthur was first starting out. Okay, I can't find it, but I know I've heard him say that he was like the only Calvinist that he knew back when he was getting started. I think he was in a big Bible study and he was the only one. Okay, so the pickings were slim back then, guys. We go back 50 years. There's no robust online Reformed community. There's books and things, but for the most part, it's pretty dry land. And the proclamation of the gospel, while it was still there, it was not very robust. It was very convoluted. You had the seeker-sensitive movement that was exploding in the 90s, followed by the emergent church movement. And so a lot of these older guys, they didn't have all the resources that you had. They definitely didn't have the online community or ability to reach out that everyone does now. And so they were just fighting to get a clear proclamation of the gospel and just the basics of like the 5 points of Calvinism and soteriology. So they were fighting for soteriology. So that's one reason why you're going to see them often react with, well, you're losing the gospel, or you might lose the gospel, or you're forgetting about the gospel. It's because that was their fight, guys. They had to fight for it. And I'm old enough to know or remember that it was a legit fight. Even where I come into the picture, so it was fast forward, and I don't want to forget to mention like Ligonier Ministries and R.C. Sproul. But you had a couple of the big ones. But even MacArthur, he had to go through years of being accused of, and still is accused of, like lordship salvation and just the basics of fighting antinomianism, which is widespread in America, and the sinner's prayer. Okay, these were just the waters that we swam in the 80s and 90s, and even the early 2000s. Okay, then you have John Piper come out with his "Don't Waste Your Life" sermon. That, and I don't remember the exact year that it came out, but. And guys, I understand. I mean, Piper was a big influence on me. I became a Christian in 2010 at the height of the Young, Restless, and Reformed movement. And Piper was a big deal. And we can go into that in a little bit. But I understand now there's huge red flags, there's problems. I do not like what he said about his family, letting someone come in and hurt his family or kill them. That's ridiculous. It's pathetic. And I don't have a lot of respect for that at all. But I do want to rewind back. Before any of us even knew that, Piper gave his "Don't Waste Your Life" sermon, and then he wrote a book about it. And he was really hitting on some of the we talk now about the post-war consensus. He wasn't talking about that. But what he was getting at was this boomer mentality of, well, you just go off into the sunset and you blow your retirement funds and you collect seashells on the seashore. And at that time, things were so nominal. It was all about the American dream. There was no edge to anything. And so what Piper was saying was very pietistic, but we didn't see it that way at the time because there was no pietism, really. No real pietism, guys. So we can look back now and be like, oh, they're too pietistic. It's all pietism. But again, that was the battle they were fighting. You didn't really have any robust, real pietism. We don't just throw all pietism out the window. But the context was, yeah, your whole goal in life was to just check out at 65 and then you go and collect seashells. And Piper was like, no, we don't need to do that. You need to spend your life for Christ. And that hit a big nerve with a lot of us because we were just in the vapors of nominalism and the American dream. And I don't have to tell you millennials that the American dream came crashing down in the 21st century. But anyways, I digress. So he had Piper, and then let's move on to like Matt Chandler. Okay, it's fun to make fun of, and rightfully so. Pink sweater wearing guy, man, I get it. DEI and all that crap. But back in the day, we make fun now of the "you're not David" stuff, but actually that was the right move at that time. And did he go too far, and did he not have it all figured out? Absolutely, he did not. And in the context now, we can look back and go, that wasn't really all that helpful. But you need to see that when he said that, when that clip, he said that in Stephen Furtick's church. And Stephen Furtick, I use the word allegedly just because I don't want to get messed up on YouTube here. He allegedly did false baptisms at his church. He had a hype crowd that was basically his staff. It's just all the arm of the flesh. Super shallow, totally retarded, guys. We all can see it now. We could see it back then too. But that was the big thing then, 2010s, early 2010s, mid 2010s. And Matt Chandler gets invited to his church and in front of everybody, because every sermon was narcissistic. It was all narcissistic, guys. It had nothing to do with any real religion. It was just, these are your 5 steps to better yourself. It was all about self. Again, it was all narcissistic, shallow. And so he was counteracting that, and he was saying, no, the Bible's about Jesus, and it is. But there's more, and we'll get to that, okay? So I just want to kind of frame it, guys, that was the battle. Soteriology was the battle. We were not thinking about ecclesiology or confessionalism, and we can look back now. I like to call it an Anabaptist Calvinist resurgence, because the fruit has been largely Anabaptist in its flavor and its nature, especially with the hardcore pietism. But at that time, and even myself included, we were just trying to get back to some of the basics of theology that had been seemingly lost. They were at least lost to us. So fast forward, it's 2010. I become a Christian. Like I said, I'm 44. And Lecrae is big. The 116 Clique is big. So there's Reformed rap. Everything is exploding online. Back then, you didn't have a bunch of podcasts or even guys like me or whatever. It was ministries and churches that would get big. Mark Driscoll's church got big. David Platt's church got big. So you'd have a big ministry and a big church, and that would give you a big platform. And we would listen to, nowadays everyone's listening to a podcast, and for a little while it was blogs. I think it's primarily podcasts now. But back then we primarily listened to sermons. We would, if you wanted to get the latest from Driscoll, you would listen to his last sermon. Okay, totally different than how we primarily get follow leaders now. But these guys, the older guys, they saw it before it started, while it happened, and after it happened, and how the young Restless and Reformed movement crashed and burned. Okay, can you think of any leaders? Francis Chan, Matt Chandler, David Platt, Mark Driscoll. Can you think of any of them that didn't go completely nuts or wacky or disqualify themselves. No, they're all out there, guys. And so, yeah, they're going to have a lot of caution. These older guys are going to have a lot of caution, and they're looking and they're going, well, where is this younger group going? But I think it really needs to be acknowledged. I'm speaking to both generations now. Can we acknowledge that after 2000, things in our culture dramatically changed? And a lot of people put that at September 11th, okay, or Obergefell, or all of the dominoes that have fallen. I think we could all acknowledge that things very drastically changed. So older people, older dudes, listen to me. These younger millennials, they didn't grow up in the world that you did. It was really messed up, okay? I know that you take it sometimes as whining, like, oh, these guys are whining about this and that. They grew up in an environment where their culture hated them, literally, still does. It's changing, vibe shift, but their school, if they went to public school, there was fur babies or whatever the heck they are, using kitty litter boxes in the school, okay? This is not the 60s and 70s here, guys. They're fighting for basic sanity, okay, and things that are really rooted in reality, okay? So being a man, being a woman, male headship, your vocation, your job, all these things that are not nebulous. It's where the rubber meets the road. That's what millennials are tackling right now. Yes, they see the failures and the train wreck of American Christian politics over the last 60, 70 years, and they're trying to do something about it. And it may make you uncomfortable that they're talking about older Reformed theology or natural law or things that you're not familiar with, but that doesn't mean that they've lost the gospel. They didn't have to fight for it, guys. So they're not fearful that they're going to lose it. I wouldn't go as far as to say that they take the gospel for granted. Maybe they do, but they didn't have to fight for it the way that you guys did, you older guys. They didn't, and so it's not on their radar. And older guys, try to understand that there are things that they are dealing with that just simply telling them read your Bible and trust in the gospel is not going to solve. They're taking, if you are charitable, they are taking what you've already begun to reclaim and they're building on it. And this is an opportunity for you to come alongside and keep reminding them about what has been fought. Don't lose the ground that has been taken, and help them take more ground. Because right now we're thinking about our grandkids and our great-grandkids. And millennials, you're going to have to go through this too. There are going to be blind spots right now that you can't see that your children are going to have to deal with. There are going to be overemphasis on things that you took too far that your children are going to have to deal with. And odds are they're going to be fighting a battle that you think isn't nearly as important or is off message, off mission than the battle that you're fighting now. So if political theology and Christian nationalism, and that is some of the central things that you're focused on right now as a young man or a man, 25 years from now, you may have made so much ground in that field that your children and grandchildren aren't really concerned about it. And it's going to freak you out. And you're going to go, you guys, no, you don't understand. You have to be involved in politics. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. And they're going to be like, what's the big deal? We're worried about ecclesiology. We need to get, whatever it is that they're going to be worried about, right? So I think there needs to be humility on all sides. And let's try to understand the lay of the land, because we've got to work together. All right? I've said it before, and I'm not some special person. I'm nothing. I just want to see us succeed. And I think that as much as it gets under my skin, and there's times when I'm like, I wish I had never been involved in this whole Reformed world. Like it's stupid and retarded, and a lot of the people in it are just a bunch of obsessed nerds, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that it won't be that way. I think there's a lot of real valuable young and older men that have a lot to give to the church and to the kingdom. And we need to figure out how to work together, and then we need to start working together. For real. And so I've said it before too, don't black pill. If you're a young guy and you think James White has been acting the fool on X or whatever, don't black pill. Look for the best in him. Try to understand where he's coming from and try to have a good conversation. It might not work. I'm not going to say one way or the other if it will. Same with you older guys, and you think, oh, these guys are just off the rails or they've lost the gospel or whatever. Try to have a little more charity. Try just a little bit to understand where they're coming from and what they're trying to do. And I've heard it said over and over, there's no fruit in this younger group. Like I said, I'm 44, so I hear it from all sides. Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's good fruit. I see it in the young people at my church. Back in the young Restless and Reformed Movement, we never would have even thought about having family integrated services. We were not concerned nearly as much with, we would have been content with complementarian, and I would call myself patriarchal now. So there's been a lot of changes, there's good changes, and there are positive changes. You know, we just interviewed Brian Sauvé the other day, and I can't wait for you guys to see it, and it's on the Christian family, and he was talking about, he used this metaphor about basically like a bowling ball or something. Okay, it's a smooth and round, and it says, love your wife. Okay, well, that's biblical, but just to say love your wife, it's like trying to pick that ball up. It's kind of, you don't know where to pick it up at. You could drop it easily. And the metaphor he used was, well, here's what it means to be a godly man, a way that you can actually measure it. Okay, these are actual, tangible ways to measure. Are you living up to the standard that God has set before us as a godly man? These are ways that a godly man would love his wife. And that puts handles on that ball. It's still the same ball. Still love your wife. But now you've got a place to grip it, and it still may be heavy, it still may be awkward, but you're going to get stronger and you have a place to grip it. And I think that that's just taking these basic truths that the older generation fought for us and got back. Okay, guys, the theology behind it. And these younger guys are really putting flesh and bones on it, and it's all beautiful and it's all good. And so let's respect each other. Let's again, I'm excited about this. I didn't hear things like that in the young Restless and Reformed days. We were trying to be like the early church in Acts, and we were trying to we were doing other things, and you were made to feel like you had to be no pun intended, but radical, which I never liked that book. As soon as I opened it up, I was like, why is there a book trying to teach you what it's like to be sold out for Christ? Like, doesn't that just happen when you hear the gospel and you surrender your life to Christ? So I never actually read it, and then now I understand that it was about everything that it was about. And so again, these are rambles, and I'm going to ramble until the ramble's over, and I think the ramble is about over, guys. If I forgot anything to say, I'm trying to think right now. Is there anything else I wanted to cover? This is my second time making the video because I'm pretty sure the first one was crap. So, yeah, I think I covered it. I do want to say that we have a YouTube members that you can join. It's kind of like Patreon, but it's through YouTube. And you actually can be involved in being in a video. We just had our first elite member who gets an entire episode of Eschatology Matters that they get to be on because they're in our elite program. But we have like 7 different tiers, all the way down to like $3 a month if you want to support us. We have members only content on there. I'm trying to do a better job at getting members only content. If we host events again, I will give my members discounts on those events, like a conference. But it's one of the main ways that you can support us is becoming a member on YouTube. And like I said, I think it's the $10 or $25 tier, and that gets you a 5-minute spot in one of our videos. And if you just been dying to say something, this is just a way for us to actually engage with one another. that you have something valuable to say, and that we really appreciate your support. Because, like I said, I'm just a blue-collar guy. I happen to have a background in the music industry, and I've used some of those insights or tools to help me build a platform. But I'm just a blue-collar guy with 6 kids. I break my back every day to make a living. I'm not a theologian. I don't hold office in the church. And my goal is to just speak like another dude to you guys, and see where that gets me. And I'm not anti-highbrow or anti-seminary at all. In fact, and we have Josh Howard, who is an actual theologian, and I think that's why it gives Eschatology Matters a good broad spectrum and a way for us to communicate to everybody without leaving anybody out. And so, I think that's all I got for today. I appreciate you guys hanging on. I know I forgot some things, but I would love to hear your thoughts and insights, some of you older guys, some of you younger guys, and we can continue this conversation. I know there's things that I'm forgetting or I don't know, and I want to keep talking about this for a little while until we get tired of it or it's not helpful, and we'll move on to something else, like my 7th great grandfather, who was an eschatological cult leader. I think I will do an episode on that in the very near future. But for now, that's all. Peace.
Seated here at my right hand.